Cecile Larson with FlexJobs, and we are here today to go through a great webinar on cover letters with Joseph Tarek from Resume Deli. I want to give some little housekeeping points to everybody. We need you to ask your questions through the question box on your GoToWebinar control panel. You may need to hit the orange arrow to expand the control panel to see the questions area, but we will go ahead and answer those as they come in or at the end of the presentation. So we're going to spend about 40 to 45 minutes with Joseph going over his tips and hints about cover letters, and then we will have time for questions at the end. So I'm very pleased to introduce Joseph Tarek, and he is the CEO of Resume Deli, and they are a member savings partner of FlexJobs. Pardon me, Joseph is a nationally recognized expert on resume development with more than 15 years experience as a career consultant and content developer. His resume writing advice has been featured by the New York Times, CBS, This Morning, Newsday, and Blog Talk Radio. He is also the co-author of Crane's Guide to Writing an Effective Resume. So we're very excited to see what he has to say, and go ahead and hand over the screen to him right now.
Hey, thanks, Jess, and hi, everyone. This is Joseph. I'm glad to be here, and yeah, I appreciate FlexJobs inviting me in. We've been, Resume Deli and FlexJobs have been partners for a number of years, and perhaps some of you attended a webinar that we ran a couple of months ago, which was on resume writing, and of course, cover letter writing. Today's topic is the next, related topic to resume writing. I just want to make sure that I have control here of the webinar. Just real quick, just to advance the slide, what do I want to do here?
So you would, we can actually see your screen. So if you open up your slides, it'll just show us your screen.
Oh, okay.
So right now we can see you're connected to webinar.
Perfect. Perfect. All good?
Oh, it looks great.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, today's topic is cover letter writing. Often overlooked, and I think often overlooked by job seekers, kind of on purpose, because I think a lot of job seekers, as bad and ugly as it is to write a resume, it somehow feels or seems that much worse to write a cover letter, which I think begets the question that we get so often, which is do recruiters and employers even read cover letters? Why do I need to write this thing? And the fact of the matter is, study after study shows that typically it's around a third of recruiters and employers are in fact reading cover letters, and the majority of those are not only reading cover letters, but they're reading them first or exclusively, meaning they're not picking up the resume, they're picking up the cover letter. So this workshop, in my estimation, is extremely important. The beauty of the beauty of everyone, or the majority of job seekers, kind of worrying about and not wanting to write a cover letter is, if you go the extra mile and to write a really targeted and effective cover letter, and we're going to talk exactly today about how to do that, it puts you way ahead of the game, and it puts you in the driver's seat, because as we know, when we're applying for jobs, what we're largely doing is it's a competition. We're playing our documents against those of other job seekers with similar backgrounds applying for similar positions or the same position. So let's step forward here. What is a cover letter? It's targeted. It's targeted to the person reading your resume and cover letter. Okay, it's not just any old letter. It can't be boilerplate. It can't be the same letter that you write for every different position that you're applying to, even if the positions are similar or in the same industry, or with a similar job title. Those cover letters have to be unique, which is I can sort of feel the eye rolling going on already. But this is how you differentiate yourself from other job seekers who are applying for the same job. And you're not just sharing your general background. You need to distill your accomplishments, distill what you've done professionally and academically, down to what's relevant. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the person reading your cover letter and think, what do they want to see about me? It's typically one page, a cover letter. In some circumstances, you can go longer. But the idea is you have approximately 3/4 to 1 page to get across to your target reader one or two or three things that they need to walk away knowing about you. That's what a cover letter is. What a cover letter is not. It's a generic note, to say, hi, this is John Smith or Mary Jones. I'm looking for a job. I saw this job. Here's my resume, and goodbye. Please give me a call for an interview. That's what I just described right there is probably, I don't know, 30, 40% of cover letters that are out there. Those letters go, if not in and out one, in one ear and out the other, they're going in the trash can. Those are indicative of a job seeker who hasn't taken the time to learn about the position they're applying for, learn about the company that they're applying to. And as I wrote here on the second bullet point, a cover letter is not the opening act for your resume. What that really means is that the cover letter, like the resume, needs to have legs. It needs to be able to stand on its own because, as I said before, some employers and recruiters are not even reading a resume. Or it could happen that the resume gets misplaced, or that Human Resources gets your cover letter and resume and gives the cover letter to one hiring manager and gives the resume to another, a matrixed hiring manager, someone else. So they're each looking at them independently. Not they switch. They may both see both documents, but not at the same time. For all these reasons, your cover letter needs to stand strong on its own. Here is a list of things that your cover letter should be screaming to. Don't use different colors like I did on your cover letter. That's just for the slide. But your cover letter needs to be screaming these different things. I want this job. I should have bolded or italicized the word this. It's not I want any job. It's not I'm looking for work. It's I want this job, the job I'm applying to. Next is it needs to say or scream, I know your company. I know and understand your company. How do you get to that point of knowing a company? You need to do research. You need to look at that company's website, press releases issued by that company, news stories found in different mainstream media, but also industry publications. If you really want to do your homework, you're going to be going to industry events. You're going to be joining LinkedIn groups where a member of this company, the company you're targeting, is involved, either speaking or blogging or writing, and you can learn more about the company and the people who work there through all these different means. This probably sounds like a lot of work, and I certainly don't mean to make this sound overwhelming. But my recommendation to my clients is typically, get to know 5 or 10 target companies to that degree. Get to know them deeply and get to know them well, as opposed to applying, taking time to write resumes and cover letters and send in applications for 50 or 100 jobs. Okay. It's better to focus on a smaller number of opportunities where you can really sink your teeth in, and where you feel really good about sending in your documents because you've done that homework, than it is to spread yourself thin. Moving on, your cover letter needs to scream that I understand your needs, which is a level even deeper than I understand your company. Understanding a company's needs can again come from the same types of research that I mentioned, but in addition to that, it may involve organizing an informational interview with somebody at the company. And what that, at a high level, what that means is, orchestrating some kind of a face-to-face or telephone one-on-one with a hiring manager that's the right hiring manager in the company that where you want to work. It's not a job interview. It's something different. And perhaps we'll have an opportunity to talk more about informational interviews either later today or more likely in another webinar. You want to be able to say, I get our industry. I understand our industry. So here you're writing a paragraph in a cover letter that's showing that you have experience in the industry, that here is where you might actually share something of your opinion or a specific experience that you've had doing work in the same industry as the person reading your cover letter. So what this gets at is kind of sticking your neck out a little bit, sharing your opinions, sharing your thoughts, sharing your ideas. The next point is I can clearly communicate the fit between my background and the job. So you want to be able to not only say, in my work experience, I've done X, Y, and Z, but you want to be able to say how X, Y, and Z are relevant to what you believe the person reading your resume needs in an employee. Some of that's going to come out of the job description you're applying to, and some of it won't. As we know, many job descriptions are extremely generic and don't necessarily offer us all the information that we'd like. So again, doing some of that other research can give you more insight into what the job really means. And of course, the last point on this slide is your cover letter is an opportunity, I would say even more so than your resume, to demonstrate your writing skills and your ability to be persuasive. Okay, next slide is red flags. And these are some phrases from typical cover letters. If you're seeing these phrases on your cover letter or on your resume for that matter, these are red flags that we're talking about. It's too generic. Okay? If you want someone to know that you're a dedicated professional, for example, then you need to tell them in your cover letter a specific story about a job a project you worked on, what you did, how you did it, and what the positive outcome was of what you did. If you do all those things and someone reads that story, there'll be no doubt that you're a hard worker or a dedicated professional. They'll simply know it. So the idea here is to prove it, not just to say it. Okay, let's take a little breather. Jess, are there any particular questions at this point that you think we should cover now, or are we good to go and cover questions at the end?
We do have some questions. We have a question of how to request an informational interview.
Sure. I'll give a really short description of that now, only because I want to make sure that we focus on the topic at hand. But once you've done research and know who it is that you would like to meet with, the idea it looks like a cover letter, but it's not quite a cover letter. You would send an email or a letter to that person, letting them know who you are and what your background is, and then get into very quickly why it is that you're writing them. You'd like to set up a meeting to discuss, well, really whatever the information is that you want, whether it's you want to learn more about their company, you want to learn more about that individual person's background. But the key to an informational interview letter, the request for that meeting, is you have to say why. Okay, why is it that you want that? And it can't just be, well, I'm thinking about getting a job in that area. It needs to be, you need to show relevance. I've been working in this field, and I've worked on these types of projects, and I believe this is the right, next step for me in my career, and here's why. And for that reason, I think you're a good person to talk with, because you're going to be able to shed light on some things. I have some particular questions, and I'd love 20 minutes of your time, either in person, ideally, or on the phone. That would be the gist of trying to get that meeting. There's sort of deeper strategies which involve figuring out. Boy, this is going to sound a little like stalking, but it's not. Kind of figuring out where that individual is going to be in terms of an industry event, and then signing up for and attending that event and meeting them by happenstance.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. And then we have a couple of people who are wondering if it would be possible to get copies of the slides, or we will be recording this, and it will be available to view on our website and on your blog as well. But are you willing to provide the actual PowerPoint itself, or should we keep it to the webinar itself?
Yeah. If someone wants to write me, or if they're going to write to you and you want to forward, I'm happy to share it.
Okay. All right. Wonderful.
Okay. So let's move on then. Let's talk a little bit about the sections of a cover letter, and then we're going to talk about 8 different sections, focusing on the sections 4 and onward, which are the nuts and bolts, the different paragraphs of the cover letter. So your header, I don't have a whole lot to say about this, but if you're going to be sending in an actual letter through the mail, or if you're turning your cover letter into a PDF and sending it as an attachment, my recommendation is that your header on your cover letter look exactly like the header on your resume, and that's just simply to do some simple marketing of yourself for yourself. When someone gets both documents via email or prints them out, it's easy to match them up. There's no other reason to doing it other than that. The date, which is the next part of a written of a printed cover letter. Make sure it's correct. I don't mean to tell you the obvious, but so often I see when people use boilerplate cover letters, and this is my pitch against using boilerplate content for your cover letter. They forget to change the date, or they forget to change, the company name from the prior cover letter that they wrote, and of course they're shooting themselves in the foot big time when they send that cover letter out and it has the wrong information in it. Okay, the recipient's contact information and salutation would come next. Again, this is only in a written cover letter that would be printed out. Ideally, go ahead and do enough research to, at minimum, get the person's name and title so you can include them on the cover letter, and so you can write, Dear Mrs. Jones instead of Dear Madam, or Dear Ma'am, or even Dear Hiring Manager. Dear Hiring Manager is the good fallback if you absolutely cannot get the name of the person. But my recommendation is to try to write to someone specific. And of course, many job descriptions don't have the name of the individual, and this gets me back to my earlier recommendation, which is to focus in on a smaller number of job opportunities and really give those your all, and do your homework on those, because then the names will come to you rather easily. Okay. After all that stuff up top at the cover letter, we have our first paragraph, which is the intro paragraph. And here's where you're going to tell your reader why it is you're writing. You're going to refer to the specific position by name. Sometimes a job description will indicate that you need to also include the job number or the job ID. So obviously do that. It sounds obvious, but third bullet point here, refer to the company or the organization that you're applying to by name. Many don't. And then include a 1 or 2 sentence pitch, which is a summary of what exactly it is you want them to know about you that's relevant for that job. Okay, it may not be the thing that you would normally say about yourself, but it needs to be targeted. It needs to be focused on what the person reading your cover letter wants to see or needs to see. This is equivalent to, you may have heard of an elevator pitch, which is typically like the 15 seconds or 20 seconds worth of what you would say to your target employer were you to meet them riding up and down in an elevator, as the story goes. And that's what this is in writing. Okay, if they only read the first paragraph of your cover letter, which isn't that out of the ordinary, this is the place to hit them over the head with what it is you want them to know. Okay, and here's an intro of paragraph 1. Okay, here's one example, and this is super typical. Okay, I'm writing to express interest in working for your organization. I've attached my resume for your review. Obviously, extremely generic. It's missing all those key components that I mentioned on the prior slide. Who you're writing to, I have no idea. What company do you want to work for? I have no idea. And the person reading this first paragraph or first sentence here is going to feel not too not targeted. They're not going to feel like you want to work for them. Okay, that's a big no. Here's another example, and I hope people on this call like baseball. I'm a big baseball fan, and so I use this as an example here. I'll let you read it to yourselves. How about that? Okay, so here we have someone who's naming the specific organization they want to work for, the New York Yankees, the position they want to get, and they're giving some information here. If this baseball player only had 1 or 2 sentences to share what they want their target employer, who very well might be is the manager of the New York Yankees, what do you want them to know about you? I want them to know that I have a .318 lifetime batting average and so on, these other statistics. And okay, this is a good first paragraph. This covers all those components, and it's clearly much more focused than the first short paragraph on the screen. Okay, here is another crack at the same thing. Okay, and I'm going to let you read this one to yourselves again. Okay, what this opening paragraph accomplishes a couple of different things. A, it's different. Okay, that's the second paragraph where I did put a green check mark next to it. It is totally fine in my opinion. The second paragraph I'm talking about now, the middle one, but it's typical in terms of its structure. The next one, the third one, is a little bit more creative. It's different. It gets personality. It embeds some of the writer's personality into the paragraph, into the cover letter. And what it does beyond that is it makes clear that the writer understands the employer's needs. Okay, I must know something about the New York Yankees if I know that the manager of the team is got to be concerned that their all-star shortstop isn't playing, that Derek Jeter can't play, and that they need to find a new shortstop. Okay, the second paragraph doesn't say that. It's all about me, the writer. Okay, the third paragraph though shows that there's definitely been some, either there's been some research done, which shows initiative, or better still, it shows that this person is a real involved person in the industry. They know what's going on. Okay, they've stuck their neck out to make an assumption, but an educated assumption that, yes, this is in fact what I am worried about, and they're trying to put my worries to rest, and they think that they can do that. Because at the end of the day, that's what an employer is really looking for. They're looking for someone who can come in, understand what's going on, understand the challenges, get their hands dirty right away in solving those problems. Okay, that's paragraph 1. Paragraphs 2 and 3 are what I call the goods. Okay, this is where you're going to tell one or two short stories about your most impressive and relevant achievements. Okay, these paragraphs might start off something like, when I was working at such and such company, as the director of promotions, I was involved in a project where, and then you launch into these details that I have bulleted on the screen here. You want to talk about an obstacle that you faced in the course of doing your job. Okay, what was the problem that you had to solve? That's the obstacle. The second indented bullet point, what did you actually do to address and overcome that obstacle? Okay, what was your process? Perhaps what processes or methods or procedures did you introduce to the company to make things happen better, faster, cheaper? And what was the positive result of your efforts? Okay, and here's where, as much as possible, as applicable to your story, you want to use data. You want to quantify what it is that you were able to get done, right? And another way to think about this that I often tell my clients is what if I were to call your old boss and say, hey, what did they do that was so great? What was their crowning achievement? And ask them to use data to describe that. Why would they hire you again? These are different ways to think about, the outcome of the story you're going to tell, the results. For those of you who attended my last webinar with FlexJobs, which was on resume writing, we talked about the Tao of resume writing, or now I'm going to talk about the Tao of cover letter writing, which is where Tao stands for task, action, and outcome. Pretty much every story you tell in a cover letter, every bullet point practically on a resume, and every answer you give in an interview, okay, in all those different venues, at all those different points in your job search, the resume, the cover letter, the LinkedIn profile, as a matter of fact, and the interview, you want to make sure that everything you say contains the task, what you did, the action, how you did it, and the outcome, what was so wonderful about the fact that you got it done. Right? If you're telling a story and you're practicing a story or thinking about one to include on the cover letter, and you can't really get at the action or the outcome, you might want to think about choosing a different story to tell as an example of what you can accomplish. And that doesn't mean that the original story you were thinking of is a bad one, okay, but not everything we do at work has all of these elements, or maybe the elements are there, but we may not know them. It's not uncommon, especially for people who have flexible jobs over the years or seasonal work, where you work on a project and you get it done, but you're not there anymore, or you moved on to a different project and you just aren't privy to the outcome or all of the outcome. That happens. That's okay. You might be able to go back and research, with old colleagues. What actually, what was the outcome of that project that we worked on? You might be able to get that information after the fact. But these are important components to be able to include. Okay. And yes, these paragraphs should be roughly, 5, 6, 7 lines long. That's a general rule. I'm just trying to give you some general guidelines. It can be a little shorter, a little longer. Okay. Jess, any questions that we should pause for?
We did have a question of what is the difference between task and action, and is DAO another form of STAR?
Yes, DAO is another form of STAR. I forget, STAR is like situation, task, action, result, if I remember right. So DAO is cooler, which is why I chose DAO instead of STAR. But I also, task, the difference between task and action. Task is really, it's just the project. It's the what was it that you were working on. So task might be. So I'll use this cover letter workshop as an example. I delivered a cover letter writing workshop. That's my task. I created the workshop by researching past cover letters from hundreds of Resume Deli clients, coming to grips with what the common challenges were among those cover letters, and creating a PowerPoint presentation in concert with FlexJobs. Those are all my actions. Those are things I did to get to this stage. The outcome, well, hasn't finished yet, but the outcome was, 700 attendees greatly enjoyed the workshop. They gave great feedback afterwards, and a certain percentage of them decided to work with Resume Deli one-on-one. Wow, I'm so glad someone asked that question. What a great opportunity for me to plug Resume Deli's individualized services. But that's task, action, and outcome, and that's the difference between task and action.
Perfect. So we've got some other ones, but I will let you keep going, and we'll get to those at the end.
Hang on. Okay, good. Paragraph 4 is the fit. And I would say this is the paragraph that's missing from 95% of cover letters, and it's a mistake to leave it out. Okay, this is where you explain to the person reading your cover letter why you're interested in this particular position at this particular company. Okay, it's not just, it can't just be, I really want a job, or I really want to work here, or this sounds like a good place to work. Okay, and again, it takes a certain level of research, or a certain amount of research, in order to get this paragraph right. You want to be able to talk about things like, what do you know about the company? And if you look at my third indented bullet point here, perhaps you've met someone from the company at some kind of an event, or you've heard someone speak at an event, or you've read an article or a blog post written by someone at the company. And what were your impressions? How did this affect your interest in the company? How did this affect your interest in applying for the position? Potentially you are a customer of the company, or have been at some point. What was your experience like from that angle, from that perspective? Anything that you can talk about that's a little bit more personal than simply, I read the job description and here I am applying. Okay, that's going to make your cover letter stand out. It's going to show genuine interest, and that's going to dramatically differentiate you from, as I've said, what's really like the 95% of job seekers who don't take the time to do this. And I don't mean to be repetitive, but it is extremely important. If you take the time to really zero in on a smaller number of applications, it doesn't mean you can't apply to. If you can't sleep without having said to yourself, look, I applied to 20 positions today. I did what I can do to find a job. You can still do that if you want to. I could actually give you reasons why I would refrain from doing that. But regardless of whether or not you do that, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6 positions that you really, really want, your A list, you want to make sure that that you're doing your proper homework and background for those applications. Okay. Paragraph 5 is next steps. and I have a couple of, these are two different examples here. So the first one is, well, here up on screen, I've attached or enclosed my resume for your review. I look forward to meeting you. This is all pretty standard language. But again, we're reiterating the name of the organization and the name of the position. Okay, so you make sure that, because the person reading your resume, they get so many that are form letters, that are boilerplate. This minimal effort here, which is to reiterate, I'm applying, I want to discuss with you my qualifications for the shortstop position with the New York Yankees. That will actually earn you some points. That little bit of additional effort to not make this boilerplate. If I can provide you with any additional information, such as such, I'm happy to do so, and please reach me by phone or email. Here it is. That's perfectly okay. I'm going to move on now to the next slide. If you've gone ahead and done a little bit of homework, if you've had that informational interview with somebody, it gives you the opportunity to do something more like this. I've attached my resume for your review. I will be in touch with you, so you're no longer passive. Now you're taking the active approach. I'm going to be in touch with you early next week to schedule a mutually convenient time for us to meet, etc. Okay. You can only get to this point if you've brokered some kind of a prior relationship with the person reading your resume. But how much more effective it is to do this, to be able to take the lead, to be able to be in a position where the person reading your resume is actually, they're not put off by this, they're hoping for it. They're expecting your application, your cover letter, and your resume. The majority of times that we're applying for jobs, sure, we're applying cold. Unless you go ahead and do this extra research and get to this point. Okay. Paragraph 6 is the goodbye. I'd keep it nice and simple. Thank you for your time and consideration. And sincerely or respectfully is typically a good sign off with your name. Straightforward. Okay. Taking your cover letter to the next level, and we have talked about a number of these things during the workshop to this point. But these are just a synopsis of things that, quite honestly, most job seekers don't do and would benefit by doing more of them. Address the recipients, or the company's needs head on. Don't be afraid. If you have some experience in the field, let your reader know about it. Okay, talk about your ideas. Talk about what you learned. And share your opinions. You might even take a risk, and I would call these, calculated risks, risks worth taking. You might tell a story on your cover letter that's about a project that did not work out the way you wanted it to. But why? Still use that Dow methodology or method. Why didn't it work out? What actions did you take, and why didn't they work? And then what did you do to correct it the next time around to get that positive outcome? Okay, that's sticking your neck out. But if you write that story properly, it's not going to come off as, oh, this person had a bad experience at work. It's going to come off as this person understands that mistakes get made and understands how to fix them. That's somebody I want working for me. You could again take a risk, stick your neck out, and the second bullet point here, offer to do something special for the person, for your potential employer. Offer to develop a small work sample, something that that they're going to see, A, be able to use it, B, be able to really gauge, how strong a candidate you are, because they're going to see that you can, get the job done. And this means, doing something that's specific, that in your opinion would be specifically something similar to what you would be doing on the job if you were to get that job. So what this does is it shows that you, again, understand what their business is all about, that you're taking a large amount of initiative, and that you're not afraid to, show what you can do. Along those same lines, you might invite them, if you have a blog, or if you yourself are going to be speaking somewhere, maybe you've published something, invite them to come hear you speak or send them your work. Again, a good example that has relevance to what it is you'd be doing on the job. And throughout all of this, I would say dare to share your personality. Like you saw with that that opening paragraph, writing to the New York Yankees. You can take a little bit of license. This is one of the differences between a cover letter and a resume in most cases. A resume does not allow that flexibility, not the same way as a cover letter does to kind of get a little creative, show how well you can write, and show a little bit about who you are. Okay. Obviously, this is, I'm talking to FlexJobs community members here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about sharing telecommuting experience on your cover letter. Like anything else, the best way to demonstrate that you can work remotely, you can work from home, is to show that you've done it in the past, if in fact you have that experience. So you kind of want to work it into all the other stories you're telling on your cover letter. Say flat out that you've worked remotely X% of the time, or that you've worked from home such and such % of the time, and what did you accomplish while working from home? Who did you manage while working from home? You get the point. Avoid these generic phrases, I can work from home. I work well independently. It's better to use the Dow method and give an example, show it in context. Because again, these are phrases that, these last 3 indented bullet points here, they're on every resume and every cover letter, and they just don't register, and they don't hold water. They don't prove that you can do what you say you can do, whereas a story with some specifics does. Okay. This is kind of like some real nitty-gritty stuff here. Sending in your cover letter. The majority of cover letters, in this day and age are sent in, or I should say applications are sent in electronically via email or uploaded to, an employer's online human resources system. So when you're sending via email, the number one rule is, read the job description carefully and follow the directions that they give you for how to apply. So that's kind of very straightforward. Short of that, if it's not explained clearly in the job description, paste your cover letter into the body of the email, starting with the Dear Jane Smith line. Okay, leave out the header, leave out the date, leave out the salutation, the company name, and all of that. Okay, start with Dear so-and-so and your letter. And then, of course, it reads, attached is my resume, not enclosed. That's the typical way to do it. Some people say, well, could I also attach my resume, my cover letter along with my resume, 2 separate attachments, or wrap them up into one document and PDF that and attach it? And my recommendation is to not do that. Have the cover letter as the body of your email, because otherwise, what do you put in your email? It's kind of like, please see my resume and cover letter attached. And you're forcing your reader to click. It's like one additional click to get the cover letter open, when they could just as well be reading it, right away in the email. So it's a small thing, but you're giving them a little bit less work to do in order to get to the good stuff. And if you're sending it by mail, then there's some just general guidelines here of what to do. Okay. Just a few next steps, and then we can move on to any other questions that you have. For those of you who are on the call and are FlexJobs members, FlexJobs members always save 20% at Resume Deli if you decide that you might like to work with us one-on-one to develop your resume and or cover letter and or LinkedIn profile. We also have a pretty intense mock interview service where we take if you have a particular job you're targeting, we'll create and deliver the interview and run the interview with you specific for that job. And use, if you come and transact on our website and you're a FlexJobs member, use coupon code FlexJobs, one word. If you're not a member, you'll still save 10% at Resume Deli through the middle of July, and you would use coupon code RD, which stands for Resume Deli, webinar, one word. And then you'll also see here we have a couple of other webinars on the horizon. September 17th, we're going to be talking about LinkedIn profiles and how to use LinkedIn for your job search. And November 12th, we're going to be talking about interviewing. Okay. Jess, I'll turn it over to you and anything that you need to talk about or any other questions that we need to tackle.
All right, wonderful. We've got quite a few, so I will try to get to as many as I can. So one of our more recent questions, oh my goodness, everyone's coming through here real quick. Give me just a moment. If you don't work from home, do you need to put anything in your cover letter if you are looking to work from home?
I would say yes, depending on how important it is to you. If it's the more important, that is that or anything else really that you want to kind of negotiate as far as your next job goes, they might need to know. If the job itself is not a work from home job, but you want to work from home, then I think you need to put that into the cover letter and let them know and get specific. If you have, if you want to work from home 100% of the time, I'd put that in. If you want to work from home 50% of the time, I would put that in. I would probably couch it somewhere toward the end of your cover letter, because even if it is a really important factor for you in deciding whether or not you would take that job at the end of the day, your first best bet is to win them over with what you can do. So get them salivating, so to speak, for through the first 90% of your cover letter, and then hit them at the end with the fact that you're looking for a position where you can work from home X% of the time. And I think that's all you really need to say. Really simple, one-line sentence toward the end.
That's
Otherwise, they
wonderful.
won't know. Yeah.
And do you believe the cover letter should only be one page?
I mentioned in the start of the workshop, I think that the majority of cover letters turn out to be one page, and that's largely because it seems to be the preference of the majority of recruiters and employers. I think if you have, a couple of factors. If you are super duper qualified for a position to the point where you have 3 or 4 highly relevant stories that you feel your target reader really needs to see in order to judge your candidacy properly, and that each subsequent story is going to make you an even stronger candidate for the job you're applying for, you should break the rule and push beyond one page. I don't think I would push beyond 2 pages. And the one major exception is academic positions, or where there are positions for, just for argument's sake, for NGOs, for non-governmental organizations, where they're looking for you to expand on a number of different questions that they pose, and so you have to answer those questions as part of the cover letter. Those are obvious exceptions to the rule, but another exception I would say is if you're applying for a very high-level position, which kind of falls into the same category as you just have an exceptional amount of highly relevant experience, and that needs to get communicated. But in my, the short answer, that's the long answer, and the short answer to the question is, in my experience working with, lots of mid, senior, and executive level professionals, one page typically gets the job done. What you want to make sure that you're while you're adding all the different types of detail that I talked about in today's presentation, you also want to make sure that you're taking out all of the generic stuff. So that actually frees up room. I'm a great communicator. I love to work with people. All those types of phrases, I'm a really hard worker. I always get the job done. So many cover letters have those generic phrases, and they're just taking up space.
Yeah, wonderful. So I'm going to combine a couple of questions here because we've had a couple of people ask kind of a similar question. With online applications, what do you do if there's not space for a cover letter, and do you need to be concerned with SEO or keywords in your cover letter to avoid getting basically
But knocked
ignored
off.
by the
Sure.
hiring process?
I'm not sure what the person asking the question means by this, if there's not room for a cover letter. So if there's a text box where you're supposed to be putting in a cover letter and there's only room for so many characters, by the way, that is really, that's a very annoying thing when it says, hey, just put your cover letter here, and then you craft this great targeted cover letter, and then it says, oh, you're 10,000 characters over the limit. So I feel for you if you've dealt with that before. But and by the way, you should test that. Just take a really long document and throw it in there. Obviously, don't hit send, but see how many characters you have to work with, before you take the time to write a really long letter. But I think most online job applications will say what components are required for submission: a resume, a cover letter, and anything else, work samples, recommendations. I apologize, Jess. What was the second part of the question? Forgive me.
You need to focus on SEO or keywords within your cover
Sure.
letter to avoid being looked over.
Yeah, and so the short answer to that is yes. However, if you target your cover letter the way I'm talking about, and if you've done enough research or already have enough experience in the industry you're targeting, it should happen organically. Actually, I wrote a blog post about that that's up on the Resume Deli blog if anyone's interested in learning more, but you can just search for keywords. But, it shouldn't feel like or look like you've just written a paragraph stuffed with keywords, because that is that generic content that I'm talking about. The keywords should appear throughout your cover letter, but in the context of the stories you're telling, in the context of, what I described as paragraphs 2, 3, and 4, the goods and the fit, where you're talking about the specifics of why you're the right person for the job and what you've done in the past that makes you the strongest candidate. Yeah, the cover letter, pardon me, the keywords should just happen.
Okay, wonderful. And again, I'm going to mush together a couple different questions for you here.
Okay.
We have questions of employment gaps. Do you address those in the cover letter if you have been unemployed for any period of time or have been out of the industry that you're applying for any period of time?
It's a big question, and there's a lot of kind of ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuances for sure.
There are, but let's take a crack at this. So I think that first of all, if the gap, the more recent the gap, the more likely you should address it. If you were out of work from 1993 to 1996, it's and you've done lots of stuff that's relevant between now and then, it's not a big deal. And I'm talking in generalities right now, of course. If the gap is, the larger the gap becomes, the more likely you should address it. The question, though, becomes, how do you address it? And in the ideal scenario, if you foresee a gap, or if a gap is happening to you, you've been out of work for a few months, and you don't have any interviews lined up at the moment, and you see that you may be out of work for more time than you originally thought, try to get yourself involved with a professional association that's in your industry. Try to write something for an industry blog and get that submitted. Write an article. Do something that you can talk about. Here's what I did during that gap, and I was doing relevant stuff to improve. You can take an online course to gather some new technical skills or soft skills. Either way, that's relevant to the work that you want to do. Relevant in your industry, just so you can say, not only was I job seeking, but I was doing X, Y, and Z, staying involved in the industry, staying up to date on trends, what's going on, meeting people, still solving challenges in my industry, just, not in the context of a paid position at this time. That's a lot better than saying just that you were, seeking employment.
Perfect. And then if you're switching industries or switching kind of fields? Does that need to be addressed in the cover letter? If you're trying to show skills that apply from one career or industry into another.
I'm glad that somebody asked that question. Sure. So it's yes, and it goes with in the same sort of context of what we've been talking about today, which is you need to be able to you need to kind of take the bull by the horns and in the cover letter say, the reason why I'm confident that I'm going to be a good fit for this type of work is because, and then you need to rethink, repurpose, rephrase the work that you've done in the past, so that it makes, you need to make it make sense or draw the line of comparison between what you've done and what you're going to be doing next. The more that you know about the work that you want to do, you'll be able to draw, for yourself, draw those lines of comparison between what you've done and what you want to do next. And it may even involve in the cover letter, you might say flat out, and don't quote me, I'm not giving you exact language to use, but, look, I have not worked in the X, Y, and Z industry. That's clear. You can just you can throw it out there. That's one approach. I'm not saying it's the right approach. It's one good approach. However, here's why I believe, I would be the right fit for this position. And then you need, if you write effectively, drawing the comparison between what you've done and what the job is calling for, again, it's going to be very impressive because it's going to show your reader that you really understand what their needs are and that you understand, that the small percentage of what you've done in the past that is relevant to what it is you want to do now. So for career changers, it's very important not to get stuck in, it's not all about what did you do mostly. Let me rephrase that. That's probably not going to be clear. I work with a lot of people on their resumes, and we're talking about their accomplishments and resume. We'll be interviewing our clients about their past work experience, and we'll ask a lot of questions, specific questions, and finally get at the one thing that they did that's so relevant to what that their target employer will want them to do. And the client will say, yes, I did that, but I only did it, it was maybe 10% of my job maximum. Or I only did it, it was 2 years ago, and the project only lasted a couple of months. And it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't have to be, it's not the most recent thing you've done. It's not the thing you did the most of. It's the most relevant thing you've done. So even if you only did it a little bit, that's still what you need to put front and center on your cover letter and resume. It's all about the person reading it and what they need to see.
Wonderful. Do you recommend putting salary expectations on a cover letter?
Only if it's required in the job description. And this is also a large question with lots of nuance. But the short answer is where salary negotiation is concerned, or negotiating anything, you ideally want the other party to speak first. This is like a typical sales, typical negotiating strategy. So there's first of all, there'd be no, if they're not asking for it, there's no reason to put it. Well, I'll say this: there's one reason to put it, which is if you absolutely positively, you're not going to work for less than X, no matter what. Then one could argue you might as well put it down, and if it's higher than what they're looking for, you've not wasted your time and nor theirs. But if you do have some flexibility, or as I said before, so many job descriptions, and I'm sure it's happened to many people on this call, you see a job description, you apply for the job, you go to sit down for an interview, and it takes 10 minutes and you realize that the job, who they're looking for is nothing like what they've described in the job description. And suddenly it's a much bigger job than you realized. It's with more responsibility. And it also occurs to you in that moment that, wow, this job is likely going to pay a lot more than I put down in my cover letter. So, you kind of want to hang tight until you have a better understanding of what the job really is and whether or not, just all the ins and outs. Do they seem like nice people? How long is the commute, if you're commuting? Are they going to let me work from home? All these different things might actually influence how much you want to get paid for the job. So to plunk down your salary requirements in the cover letter, unless it's required, I think you might be, potentially selling yourself short where negotiating is concerned.
Wonderful. And we're going to do one more question and then kind of wrap it up here because we are almost at the top of the hour here.
Okay.
Do you need to make your cover letter visually stand out? In other words, would you put borders, flowers, lines, colors?
Flowers, lots of flowers. No.
I thought you'd appreciate that.
No. I would, again, with the exception is if you're an art director applying for a position with an agency or a magazine, then the rules change. But short of a job like that, you want your resume and your cover letter to be clean, nice, wide enough margins, font size that's proper. I typically go anywhere between, let's say, Arial 9.5 and Arial 10.5, or the equivalent if you're using a different font. Again, that's not a hard and fast rule, but that's about right. But the thing I would say is, a cover letter can incorporate a few bullet points. Depending on how you're, writing up your story is in paragraphs 2 and 3. So what that can do is just kind of visually break things up a little bit. It can be used strategically to draw attention to certain facts, to data, if you're able to quantify some of your work. Not using numbers, using data in and of themselves. It pops off the page. The same goes for a resume. That's one of the reasons to use numbers when appropriate or when applicable, is because otherwise it's just a sea of words. You might bold one phrase, one key phrase. I'm always very wary about, over bolding though, because then, everything becomes highlighted and nothing's highlighted at the same time. But short of that, borders, there's studies done, design studies that say borders on resumes and cover letters actually make them more difficult to read, and they typically chew up real estate that you need, to keep that cover letter to one page, for argument's sake. So, no, I think simple and clean and attractive to read, easy to read, plenty of white space. That's my recommendation.
All right, wonderful. And I just want to let everybody know that we have recorded today's presentation, so you will all be getting an email tomorrow that will have a link directly to the recorded copy of the webinar. And we can also include the slides so that you are able to look over those as well. I do really want to thank so very much Joseph Tarek of Resume Valley. Again, this has been a wonderful presentation and has given a lot of great tips and pointers on how to secure a wonderful position. And so we definitely encourage everyone to go look at Resume Valley, and if you're a FlexJobs member, definitely utilize your member savings to use their services as well. So again, thank you so much, Joseph, for coming and doing this and talking to us. And again, if you need any more information, you're also welcome to go to FlexJobs.com. You can send us an email at feedback@FlexJobs.com, or you can also send me an email directly, which is jess@FlexJobs.com, and I'll be glad to answer any questions or anything that you need as well if we didn't address something here. So thank you, everyone, for attending, and best of luck in your job searches and careers.
And thank you, too, Jess.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.